Welcome to Gridiron Chronicles. My name is Sway, and we have here.
Matt Archer with the Cactus Football League.
So first things first.
Yes, sir.
How'd you come up with the league?
Well, the league originally was designed to take over the GFL, which was the Gridiron Football League. At the time, I was in that league with the Spartans, and just a lot of things we wanted to fix from an owner's standpoint and a league standpoint. So we started putting our heads together, me and my partner Raph, and we presented it to the owner at the time, and he told us basically he wasn't interested. And then at the end of my second season, he dropped the ball big time on a game that had playoff, results and things. And so I just said, you know what, I'm just going to move forward with the league. And they ended up, taking all the teams came over. From there, we grabbed a couple. I think there was one from the DFL that came up, and then the AZFL was kind of on its way closing doors. The owner of that league was retiring, and so I think Sean Ina, the owner of it now, if they're still around, he took over and kind of was like, I'm gonna take a break. And then we got some teams from there, and then that's how we started the league.
So what are some of your biggest accomplishments with this league so far?
With this league, I think longevity. We're going into our sixth season. I think having teams been around, before the league started are still with us. Newer teams that have come in since the league started are still going strong. I think honestly, just staying as true to our original goal as possible is what's kept us around as long as we have, in longevity. So that's pretty much where I'm at with that right now.
So you guys had around when you guys first started, it was 18 teams, something like that?
So our first season we had, I think it was 11, and we ended up dropping a team. So we had 10 that first season. Then the second year was 17. We started the season with, and we made it through there. And then COVID hit. I think that was our 1920. So the COVID year, and a few of those teams didn't survive. They didn't have enough money. They barely made it into the season. So they just shut the doors, and then we've been at, I think we're at 13, 14 the next year, and then we've been at eight since then.
So would you consider that to be your best season, like the 17 teams?
No, I don't think our 17 teams, and a lot of people, when you talk about 17 teams, that's a lot of egos to manage, that's a lot of people to manage, a lot of scheduling issues. You're running 3 football fields at one Saturday. So I wanted to be the biggest league, but then I realized that being the biggest doesn't mean you're the best. So we started to see a lot of, I won't call it riff-raff, but just the lack of professionalism with having let all the teams in. So it's when we dialed it back going into the legacy year. We kind of pulled back a little bit and just asked some teams not to, we didn't ask them not to come back, we just didn't invite them to come along with us, if that makes sense. So, and that's where I think our best year overall, I'm going to be very honest, was probably our third year. It was after COVID. We still pulled it all together. We had a great season that year, as far as just no major issues. I don't think we had any big fights that year, so that was a big plus for us. So I think year 3 is probably be our best. And then this last season at Sunny Slope was really good. I think having our new director of football running the program and dealing with the owners and all the players kind of took me out of the picture to where some of those feelings that have been around for a while are kind of not in play anymore. So those people are having to deal with something totally different. So this last year was pretty well.
What is the difference between the Arizona Alliance League and the CFL?
I think at the very top, we're a for-profit business. The Alliance League is a non-profit business, or a not-for-profit. I'm not sure how they're classified as far as their classification goes. But that's probably the two major, the biggest differences is, we're originally started out this was a business for me. It was never a hobby. I don't know if you're familiar, but if you're not making money, it's a hobby, right? That's usually the term. So I set out to make it a business, and I think more for Nigel and his partners over there, it's more of just to give back to the community and help some other people get some places too, which our league does that, but that's not my focus, right? I feel we've given all the players the tools, but it's up to you guys to figure out how you want to use them. I think Nigel's pushing a little bit more of a different approach by bringing in, some more out-of-state games and traveling and doing things like that. So it's kind of the difference for us. For me, I want to focus on Arizona. I only wanted to focus on Arizona, and I think that's where a lot of people are getting maybe some confusion. Is it's not just about me, it's about what we're doing here. And I think that's the problem, is all these leagues and owners talk about, well, we got to go outside the state. We can't get a team to travel, right? I mean, did you play on the Vipers when you were? I think you did last season, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So you're familiar with the travel issues and just having to, and not knock against Nigel, but it's a lot of money to travel a team. And I don't think a lot of people realize that when it's not your money that you're paying. So, yeah, that's kind of the big difference. I think, too, we have a lot of the older generation of semi-pro players and guys from the AZFL, like Fisher, who's played, 20 years ago. The Outlaws are still around, like John Polchin. He may not own the team, but he's still involved in behind the scenes doing their stats and stuff. So kind of keeping the older heads in the CFL and the new and up and coming guys are kind of navigating over to the other league just kind of because of that age difference, I guess, and way of running their teams.
So how come you can't like both leagues can't like get a state game? Like, what do you think the problem is?
So we talked about it in our thing. I'm gonna get real with you. The state game had nothing to do with me and Nigel. A lot of people think that. I didn't watch their full podcast, but me and Nigel were open to doing it. We put it on the Canes and the Roll Tide to figure it out. 3 out of the 4 parties said they would do it, and 1 wouldn't. So without having both teams on board, we can't have the state game. I personally have been very upfront. Usually when the last couple of state games we did have, we fronted the bill. Like the CFL paid for everything up front, and then we didn't make enough money at the gate to cover the cost. So we're paying out of pocket to do that. So this last year, me and Nigel agreed we would split all the cost, and then we would split the gate if the game happened. It never did. The year prior, when the Outlaws won, I think that was the Vengeance, right, that won that year, there was something going on behind the scenes that I don't really still know if it's even been squashed or is still around, but that was the main issues. They didn't want nothing to do with me when I really wasn't the one that did anything wrong. So, but when you're at the top, that's usually where all the fingers are pointed. So, but yeah. But as far as the state game goes, I'm all for it. I think it's a great thing. I think sometimes some egos get in the way, and that's why I've removed myself from being in a position I am at the league now, where it's really up to Merle to handle and decide whether or not we're doing that stuff, and he's very open to those competitions and those games. So hopefully this next season we'll see it happen.
So with your so the Alliance League having an All-Star game, how come like the CFL hasn't like really pushed for like the All-Star game?
So for me, to be very real with you, the All-Star game is it's a waste of money. Same thing. We put the games together. We get 100 fans there. It costs us $1,500 we don't get enough money at the gate to cover the cost of the game. And I think a lot of people don't realize it. They think it's free. It grows on money, doesn't grow on trees. So we charge our players and our teams just enough to cover the season, the playoffs, championship package, the shirts and all the stuff that goes into the championship game. And then outside of that, it's really up to the coaches and owners to figure out what they want to do. We've tried to, and the other thing too with our All-Stars is we've tried to figure out how to select All-Stars every year. It's always been a controversy, so I just said, you know what, we're not doing it at all anymore. And I noticed this last year when Alliance did their All-Star, there was controversy about how those people were selected, and it kind of proves my point that it's a lose-lose from a league owner, a league's perspective when it comes to the game. If the players want to put it on themselves, great. More power to them.
So the Alliance League, when they have their meetings, they appoint some of the team owners to be like players, reps, or like just stuff like that. Do you guys do the same thing, or do you guys have like just the top people in your like ownership basically just? So
the owners, we changed it up this year when I took a step back. Merle Robinson's our director of football, so he deals with the owners when it comes to decision making. Each owner has 1 or 2 people in the meetings, and then it's usually majority votes that way. I'm not a big fan of having team owners or managers being player reps, because then you start getting into the favoritisms and just whether it's there or not, or it actually is happening, the perception is there. And I think that's where a lot of people, to talk about the Spartans, right? Everybody's like, oh, the Spartans have never won a championship in the 5 years that I've owned the league. So that's kind of debunked that whole theory of the favoritism, but it's still there, right? Like, I don't think I've done anything. I just did the schedule this week. I think they have 1 or 2 7:00 games. The rest of them are in the morning. So, like, kind of just that perception is there. And unfortunately, some people have a hard time seeing the bigger picture. And then when you have the groups, you're talking about your question, it's a huge dynamic. Like everybody has different personalities, different upbringings, different views of running businesses, and I think that's what makes it great, right? To have these different leagues, but at the same time, you know, there's going to be that conflict because you can't always agree on things. So I think also having, you know, like-minded people in the ownership definitely helps things get smoother, at least at our side. I can't speak for Nigel and them, but I definitely believe that, you know, having our owners being able to talk to each other is huge, you know, so.
How did the idea come up for you guys to have like the refs meetings, like they watch film?
So that's actually with our refs. We have Alex Herrera, who's our main ref guy. He owns Field Judge. He actually has what they call an ad hoc committee. So he has a group, I think it's 7 or 8 guys that are in Pac-12, Big 10, like all the big NCAA, like they grade film for the NCAA games. So that group basically applied those same principles and same process to our league. So every one of our games gets sent to a reviewer. They grade the refs, and then we start to filter out the refs as good or bad and kind of go that way. I may be speaking out of turn, but I don't think the Alliance League's refs, they show up, they ref the game, they go home, and nobody sees them until next week. So I know in our season, they meet every Wednesday night at Merle's house, and it's open to all the players and coaches to come. So we put that invite out there a few times. Come sit with them if you got questions like, you know, hey, why was this foul called, this play, whatever, and then they'll break it down for you. And I think the craziest thing is anybody that goes to those comes back with a whole new perspective of the refs. And I think that that's something that's huge, that should be done regardless, right? Because as a coach too, like, I don't like the refs, I'm just be honest with you. Them as people, I think they're all, like, Merle's a great guy, but reffing wise, I don't know if if he's been on the sideline when I've been there, and I'm like, I don't know if I had to deal with that. But I think that it just gives that perspective that, you know, you guys are all working for the common goal, and it's not him against them. You know, it's kind of more of a mutual thing, and I think that's what's kind of propelled us. We did a refs clinic. I think it was our last week of the season. We had over 100 refs from all over the country at our games, and these are guys that are like basically training to go into the NFL. So they were doing kind of a mock training for the NFL style referees when they get selected. So our players got to really see, you know, what a next level caliber refs look like. You know, it made our games go about 45 minutes longer because they were actually truly doing it to true form instead of, you know, keeping it within our time slots. So I really hope that, you know, Nigel at some point can get the ref thing a little bit higher. I do know that if our refs don't get scheduled for our games, I do know they go try to work the Lions League, which is great. So
Speaking of refs, do you feel like a ref could be biased, and if like they are being biased, do you feel like that can cause problems on the between the two teams, like possibly start fights?
Correct. I think, you know, I'm a big believer in approach determines response. So if you come at the ref all crazy and, you know, try to act like an asshole, like you're gonna get that perception back. So I think if you can approach it in a more of a professional manner, even if you're mad, you definitely can try to ease the tension there. I do know there's some refs in our league specifically that if you say you suck, like they throw flags. But if it's like the refs suck, they don't say anything. So I think you kind of have to learn the refs, and you know, I'm learning that in the high school football that, you know, the coaches and the refs all know each other versus the Lions and the CFL. It's like, oh, the refs, we don't talk to them. It's almost like a territorial type, I don't want to say gang thing, but it's definitely that, you know, that feeling like, oh, we don't talk to them, they're the refs. It's like, well, no, if you did talk to them and you did go to those meetings and got to see what it really looks like behind the scenes for a ref, then you might have a little more appreciation for what's going on the field, you know, as far as fouls and things like that.
So you guys have basically they look like NFL tickets, basically. Mm-hmm. You purchase the tickets. Like, whose idea was that? How did that come up?
So that was originally started in our first year with the Spartans, because I was trying to create fan base for the team. And Christian Klein at the time, when he owned the team with me, graphics guy, hey, we're going to give these tickets out. And when they show up to the games, I'll just pay the league whatever, how many tickets get purchased or how many tickets get presented at the gate. I'll just pay them for those people. That was kind of the initial thought of the ticket, was a marketing promo to get people to come watch our games. Over time, we realized that really wasn't it wasn't doing what we thought it was going to do. And then we, you know, realized that it was costing us money versus they weren't buying swag. They weren't, players it just wasn't making any money, so we stopped doing that. But the tickets has always been a cool thing to me because like I have the tickets of Martwan Weaver and Lorenz on my desk still to this day, where they signed it our first year. We had customized tickets for them like the Cardinals did, and they're on my shadow box with all my football stuff. So I'm pretty proud of having those. Probably I think that's the only 2 signed tickets in existence from those 2 guys.
So do you feel like it's different from just people paying up front, like basically with cash and
Yeah, because originally the thought process was to try to make it more of an NFL college type experience versus a high school. When you go to high school games, you pay the $5, you just walk in. Like there's no memento per se, and having a lot of the players' kids there, trying to give them something to like hold on to. Like, hey, my dad used to play. But to them it's professional football, right? They used to play football, and that was kind of the idea of pushing the tickets and stuff. Now everything's so digitalized, and it's like we kind of went away from the tickets because we don't have to pay for that, and we can still serve the purpose like with the apps and things.
Do you have a long-term goal for your league?
A long-term goal for the league's kind of, I don't want to be negative, but it's kind of not there anymore. Originally we set out to, be the best league. I wanted to really try to be what an XFL, the USFL is doing locally. Like I don't know if you've heard of the Savannah Bananas, that baseball team. They're like a semi-pro Globetrotters baseball team, but kind of that, but just the localized in the off season where people that are all they got is popcorn or football, they can watch actual, big guys play football. That was the original idea. On my own stadium, that was like the biggest goal. So right now, that's still in effect. I have 400 acres under contract in the West Valley right now that we're working with the city to get the park designed and built. So the dome, and it's actually converting now to a true brick and mortar type stadium. I don't know if the leagues will be there. I don't know if I'm going to let the riffraff continue and all the kind of side stuff that goes on in the parking lot, the locker rooms, and I don't know if that's something we're willing to let continue in a $2.7 billion facility. I don't know if that's something we're going to want to, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. As far as currently, I'm just there as long as the owners are there. That was kind of the decision we made last year after the whole Legacy debacle and the failure of that project at Legacy. We just decided as long as the owners are still involved, I'll be involved. And then transitioning to the other projects and companies I have, that's when Merle was brought in to kind of take over the operations of the league and to get some of those animosity and feelings, and like they're non-existent as far as making decisions with the league. So I think right now I'm just gonna go watch some football. That's really what I have for the league right now. I do know there's a couple of up-and-coming players and some new owner managements that wanting to do some bigger things. But once we go back to our original question, right? Egos, and can everybody get along and play nice in the sandbox? And I don't know if that's going to happen.
Are you excited for any upcoming teams for this season?
Yeah, I'm excited to. One of my couple favorite players is back from Arena, so he'll be playing the upcoming, first half of the season for if he gets drafted or picked up somewhere, he'll be headed out. But I'm really hoping the Spartans get it figured out this year. I know everybody's going to be kind of making jokes about it, but honestly, I've been rooting for them for a while, so hopefully they get it figured out. I do know the the Outlaws are looking really strong. I think they pretty much got their whole team back as far as the championship team that won 2 years ago. I know Big Rico's out there throwing the ball as hard as he ever has. So, and then, believe it or not, I'm excited to see what the Reapers look like. They've had a lot of controversy, and every season's always seemed to have some sort of issue. But after last year, I hope their experience humbled them a little bit, and I think they're ready to compete and just play football versus be the loudmouth on the playground. So, what do you think the Reapers' issue is and why they can't stay in the league? I think everything starts at the top. That's every team, anywhere. Like, we're talking Amazon all the way down to the guy selling water on the street corner out here. Like, it starts at the top. So if the top is kind of let certain things go and their standards aren't there, it just trickles down through the organization, to the coaches, to the players, to the fans, to the media, all that stuff. So, and I think also, no knock to Tyler. He's still young. He's still, I think, in his mid-20s. This is. He's still got a lot of life to live. I'm 42, so I've had a few catastrophic failures in my lifetime. And I just don't know if he's just doesn't have enough experience yet. But that's kind of my mission this year, is to kind of take him under my wing as much as he'll allow me to be, involved like he was his very first year in the league. And just try to help him and guide him a little bit, and just, make sure we identify some of those, whatever issues may come right in the beginning and not so much at the end.
So, okay, when did you first start playing football?
So I started playing football when I was 10 years old, Pop Warner, and then I played a little bit of my freshman year, but decided to do baseball instead. And then I didn't play football for 20 years. And then my little brother was coming up. There's an 18-year age difference between him and I, and he was a star player on this little team up there in California, and I just kind of got that itch again. And my dad played semi-pro football when I was a kid, so I was like, hey, I'm going to Google this and see. I ended up finding the Warlords at the time, before they became rebranded to the Rebels. And that was kind of a funny story. I went out there, and Ed Love didn't shake my hand. I'm big on that. Like, I shook your hand right when I met you. Like, I'm huge on that. Whether I don't like somebody or I'm not agreed in their lifestyle, whatever, I'll at least respectfully, acknowledge them and, shake their hand and just let them know that I see them there. That's a big thing for me, and I give that speech to almost every team when I go to their practices. Like, you never know who's watching, all that sort of stuff. So I just Googled it, met him, decided, it was like 2 weeks before the season, the 15 season, and I was like, no, you know what, I'm out of shape. I haven't played in 20 years, so I'm like, I got to get back in shape, get my body right. And I Googled it up again the next year, and that's when the Spartans were a new team. And, Baxter, I didn't know anybody, right? So I didn't have a clue who anybody was. Lion Ryan Bourne sold a great product, verbally. Show up, he's got 60 dudes out there practicing, a full coaching staff. I'm like, okay, I can do this. I think within like a month, man, it was down to me, and the whole team just split. Like, it was a disaster. So that's how I ended up with the Spartans. And so I decided, I'm going to take this and run with it. And he went and started I think it was the Warriors, and everybody knows the story of that one. So that's how I ended up starting playing football. Didn't really play much in high school, so.
Do you feel like you were one of a top player in the league at the time?
Absolutely not. I was a sold fat guy that, I I hate to say this, but I was the typical lineman, right? Like, even though I owned the team, I wouldn't practice. I'd show up in my street clothes, and then I'd come in game day thinking I could do this. There's a few film clips from the first year huddle where you see me out there like the fourth or fifth play, I'm already tapping my helmet, and Coach Aaron's doing this, like, you stay out there. So I absolutely was not a player as far as physicality goes. Understanding the game and what works and what doesn't, and how to use our players and all that, I think I'm pretty good up there. I'm definitely good at identifying and noticing when things aren't working, and then trying to figure out how to get them to work. But physically wise, I was not anywhere. I shouldn't even been on the football field to begin with, to be honest with you.
So do you feel like those tangibles that you have, or you being able to identify with people, and do you think that that's following you to how you own your league, basically?
Yeah, so I think that's really the biggest thing, is I like to solve problems, especially if it involves, some sort of a dividend on it, whether it's a connection or a product that, we create, or a relationship, or money. It just all depends, but, it's fun to solve the problems. But the first challenge is identifying the problems, and then the second one is making sure you're not the problem. And I think that's kind of where the issue is this day and age, is nobody wants to admit that their issues and their problems, it's everybody else's fault, it's everybody else's problem.
So basically, not basically, but how do you want this year to end, basically? Yeah, basically.
This year I want to end with all 8 teams still in the league, no major issues. I don't want to lose our school. A lot of people don't realize, like, we're semi-pros running out of places to play. And regardless of what all the other owners and team guys, we can't get, run out of places to play. So my biggest goal, like every year since our first year, is to not lose a school district, not to lose a school. I can't tell you how many butts I've kissed and checks I've written to make sure that we can continue to stay where we're at, and a lot of damage control, and I think that that's been huge, for us as far as a focus point, and, just all 8 teams. I really hope there's no major injuries. Every year I feel like we've had like a major, torn ACL surgeries. We've had a, shattered ankle, I think, our 1 year at Cortez. That guy, he'll never play football again. I mean, he coaches now at Arcadia, but as far as physically competing in the game, his career's over. And that's like my worst fear is like somebody gets hurt on one of our fields, and you're in the other league. So, just it doesn't matter which field it is, they get hurt. Like now you can't feed your kids. You can't, everything's kind of in that, I don't want that to ever come upon anybody. So.
Do you feel like you're basically the top league in like between the Tucson League and Alliance League?
Well, the Tucson League, it's hard to really get into the nitty gritty because I don't know much about the league itself other than they seem to start with a lot of teams, and by the middle of the season they're down to 3 or 4, and then by the end of the year the Soul Patrol's giving themselves a trophy. So I don't really understand like how we call it a league when it's really 7 teams with 10 guys on each team, right? I don't know much about the business model, but what I've gathered is the league, or Jay, owns all the teams, and then he assigns head coaches and owners to them. And I may be wrong, I don't know, I haven't dug that deep into it, but I definitely feel that's the vibe. I felt it was pretty disrespectful. They gave that one team a runner-up trophy. Like, I really thought that was kind of a smack in the face. Like, I don't know about you or how long you've been playing, but in the 8 years I've been around, I've never seen a runner-up trophy or plaque given to the losing team at the championship. Like, right? Like, I was just kind of like, that's kind of a dickhead move. Like, it doesn't happen in NFL, right? Like, they don't get it. I mean, they don't get shit. They walk off the field and go home, right? So I think that was kind of the thing. I also believe that there's a lot of things that could happen from both leagues. As far as the CFL being better than the Alliance, that's a tough question because I think we both have positives. We both have negatives, right? We started CMX and we started doing all the live streaming, and it was a $40,000 project that we put into that one season, and we didn't create $1 revenue off of that in any way, shape, or form. That's why I sold it a few weeks ago to Donovan, just because it wasn't making any money. It was costing me money with taxes and all that. So, but then I see Nigel trying to do the live streaming, which I'm not sure who's doing that, but it's definitely got a lot of room for improvement. But I got to give the credit because they're doing it and we were not doing it no more. And I think for me, it's either we're going to do it 100% correct and it's going to be as top notch as we can do it, or we're not going to do it at all. Because I'd rather just not be stupid and look dumb. I'd rather just say, no, we're not. If we can't do it at 110%, we're not doing it at all. So I think that's another reason why we've had so many teams at 8, 9, 10 versus 12 or 13, because yeah, it's great to have 12 or 13 teams on paper, but when you come down to that opening day and you've got 8 teams that haven't paid you, you got enough funds to get through week 4, and then you're screwed, right? So for me, I'd rather take the 8 teams that pay on time, that pay their fees, and we know before opening season everything is covered, and then we just have to worry about the incidentals, right? Because the worst thing is to have to chase money during the season, right? Because a lot of people make those openings, oh, we're good, everybody's good, and then week 4, like, you have nowhere to play because you can't pay the refs anymore, you're out of money, and then you're sitting around everybody's looking at each other like who actually paid and who didn't. So I think that's kind of the difference there. I'm very stickler on the payment thing. Anybody that's been in my league, they know there's penalties. Like, I don't know if you're aware, but like we opened registration and there was 3 teams that didn't pay their deposit, so players couldn't register for the team. So that got the payment in real quick. So it just shows you, like, you have to have some foot down. You got to have some sort of a standard, or like, hey, we're not going to cross this particular line, or everybody's held to that same standard. Our first year, half of the starting offense for the Spartans didn't play because they didn't register in time. So I made them all sit the game because they didn't meet the deadline. So that was kind of one thing I noticed with Nigel's league, is that some stuff's kind of held towards one team and not the other. Some players pay, some players don't. And once again, it's all rumors. I don't have the actual data, but if enough people are saying it and there's enough, especially when those people don't like each other and they don't talk to each other and they have the same story, then it's kind of like there's got to be some sort of truth to that in there. So I think that's really the difference. As far as being the top league, I feel like we have a lot more cohesive teams. And what I mean by that is that we have teams that, the players are overall well-rounded with some superstars. I feel like the other leagues, there's 2 or 3, 4 players on one team that are just extremely well, and the rest of them are just showing up like I did. Like, they're just there to be on the team, so versus having, some teams that are just overall good, you just have 2 or 3 superstars. So.
Well, I really appreciate you. Thank you for coming. It was like, when they was like, what, Matt Archer's coming to the pod? Yeah, he's coming. Like, it surprised everybody. It is like, how'd you get him?
Yeah.
I was like, he's cooperative. I asked him and he agreed.
Yeah, and I think that's why I wanted to come on the show, because I think a lot of people have this perception that I don't want to deal with people. I'm an asshole. No, the people that are saying that are the ones the specific people I don't want to deal with, right? Just like I'm sure there's people in your life where you're just like, yeah, I don't want to deal with that guy. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? I think that's what makes this country great, just makes us living here awesome, is that you have that choice. I think the issue that I always run into is it's a difference of opinions, and when it's not agreed upon, I don't bring it to the masses. I just let it go and move on to the next thing, and some people can't get past those. And that's kind of I think the big perception. Like Roe, shout out to Roe. He's one of probably the few players that I've got really close with over the last couple of years. And the reason is because he stepped outside his box and said, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? I said, sure. So we chatted for a few minutes at the field, and then he was like, hey, can we get to dinner? I want to talk to you about a business thing. I said, all right. And that's kind of how our relationship evolved once he got to sit down and have like a one-on-one with me and really talk about the future and the bigger picture versus why that ref threw the flag on Saturday that didn't mean anything to anybody, that people are still clocking on good zone, right? And I think that's why I appreciate Roe, because he was able to just kind of step outside his box, just like I was, right? Like I grew up on a dairy in California, Northern Cal. He grew up in the streets of Southern LA, like straight. That's one guy I would not want to cross with, as far as just being open about it. But yet we have so many things in common when it comes to business, big picture, family. Like he's a huge family guy, which makes me respect him even more. And there's a lot of players in the league that are like that. They have this online persona, which I hate, right? Like, but if that's all I know, that's all we know. That's why I'm not on social media like as crazy as most people think I should be. It's because there's a lot of things in my life that are private. I have my circles, and that's why I was wanting to come on your show, just so that to show people I'm not against any other leagues, right? It's just I have certain standards of things that I don't want to deal with, and unfortunately, if you fall in those buckets, that's just the way it is, right? It's not a personal thing. I'm not going to hold it against you. I take a lot of pride in me and Asia being able to squash a lot of I call it the Cold War, where we're just throwing jabs at each other into windows and subliminal messages and jabs, and we finally just talked it out, and now we're on the same page as far as communication with each other. Be open. I'm not going to invite into my kid's birthday party, right? Like we're not going to go have beers together. I mean, we might, but we understand that if we each have a problem with each other, we know that line is open, right? The cell phone number's there, it's saved. That he can come straight to me with anything, and I've gone straight to him with some stuff after the fact. And we got it handled right then and there versus going through other people. And I think that comes back to my statement earlier about approach determines response. I don't think anybody in the league can ever say, or anywhere, that if they have approached me in just a civil manner, I've not responded in a civil manner, or at least acknowledged you'd be in there. And that's kind of where I, kind of determine whether or not you're going to get chatted with, is how are you going to approach me, so.
Yeah, I really appreciate you for coming. Like, I thank you. It's like I said, like people didn't expect it, but hey, you expect the unexpected. You never know what will happen.
Yeah. I mean, what's the worst thing to say? I say no.
No. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I've had a few people tell me, no, I don't want to be on the show, Matt. Like when I was doing Commish Corner. All right, cool. Like, and we moved on. It wasn't a big deal, So, but I'm excited for what you're doing, and I applaud you, and I think you're on the right track. I think you opening it up and not being so driven to one league is going to be huge. And I think that's where we might have misstepped with CMX, was because we kind of focused all of our stuff on what's happening in the CFL. And then, Petty Sunday got way off track and opened a whole can of worms that, I wasn't quite prepared for. But it was one of our highest rated shows. I mean, people watched it hours and hours. So I think being able to just be a neutral party and not be biased off what other people say, that sort of thing. So, yeah, it'll be fun.
Well, I appreciate you. I thank you for coming, sir.
Yeah, any other questions you got?
I got none.
Come on, there's more out there.
Well, I do, but
Go ahead.
Yeah, I could go with them?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Let me disclaim this. Just be prepared for the answer. That's all I tell people.
Okay. So I had this, before we go, I had this one question I did want to ask you.
Yeah.
What happened that day at the between you and another owner of the league? Not Nigel, but an owner of a team in a different league. There was apparently some arguing at a Vipers game.
So that So that all stems from a comment that was made on the show. I didn't make the comment. Just everybody knows I can go watch the podcast. I went there to support you guys as a game because my best friend was the OC at the time. So we just came. I sat on the visitor sideline because I know there was some animosity with some of the players and, you know, whatever was going on. Cool with that. I didn't know, unbeknownst to me, that his wife was at the top of the stands when I sat down. So she went over and told him. That kind of got him fired up, and then there was a big argument between Nigel and Renee and them, and just why I was there. I paid to get in the game. Like, I don't ever go anywhere free. I don't believe in that. I support, if I'm going to go check something out, I'm going to pay to get in and do what everybody else does. You know, after the game, he wanted to talk to me. I started, cool, you know, what do you want to talk about? Let's go across the street. Now, listen, I'm not an idiot. Like, I know what that term means. It's not worth it to me, right? Like, it's just, you want to fight over something that wasn't said to me, or I said or didn't say. So after, you know, kind of going back and forth on that, I just chose, you know, it's not worth it. I'm going to just go ahead and head out. And he followed me to my car, which might not have been the best decision for him. But thankfully, Aaron was there and kind of diffused it, and that was the end of that. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't have an issue with him or anything that's going on. I know Nigel's tried to get us together a few times, and I'm like, just let me know when and where. It's never happened. So as far as I go, I don't dwell on the stuff in the past. You know, I respect him for standing up for what he believes and what he's got going on with his family. Like, I'm not going to say that's wrong of him to do that. But like I said, approach determines response. You know, we can have a conversation right then and there, but, you know, you want to take it across the street and go wherever you want to go. That's not having a conversation. That's just, you want to do something dumb. So.
And another thing, so I know you're probably like if you're not in the grid zone or the red zone sometimes. I know there's sometimes where there's people be like, oh, the CFL isn't doing this, they're not about this, they're not about that. What are your comments on that? Because it's basically like they promised this and they're not doing it, or like, why are they not posting the games? Like, oh, they're late, you know.
So this last year we really, you know, we ran into some personnel issues. That was probably the biggest thing of getting things on there. Once we shut CMX down after Legacy that season was over, we really didn't have anybody to do any of it. So that was the reason why some of that stuff wasn't getting handled. Another part of me too is, welcome to my world, right? Like, you say you're going to pay us, you say you're going to not smoke weed in the locker room, not going to drink in the parking lot, but you guys do it anyways. It's kind of was my way of kind of letting them know, like, if I take my hands fully off the throttle, this is what you're going to have to, you know, this is what you're going to get. So it was kind of more of me letting everybody know, like, as much as I'm not liked or whatever the comments are, like, there's a lot of things I do that people take for granted. And I think that was my message mainly, was to, like, let them know, like, you know, Matt's not here anymore, so this is what we get. So be appreciative of, you know, what you have and what I am doing versus the personal issues going on, you know. So, but this year we're getting that fixed, some of that stuff. Got the huddle all back in order, so that'll be fixed, and then the stats, we're working with the Ashley Huddle to do the stats, so that'll be kind of taken care of. So as far as what I promise, don't promise, this, that, and the other, nobody's really stepping up to take the lead, right? Like, everybody wants certain things done. They want all this stuff for free, but it takes, like, people to do it. I mean, just like, look at you, like, you're trying to do your show. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that nobody even fathoms it takes to. You know, you watch a show on the NFL Network, there's 2 people talking for an hour. There's probably 60 to 80 people full time behind the scenes doing all that stuff for you to watch an hour's worth of show. So when you don't have the staff and you're one person, a lot of stuff, you know, you focus on the bigger things. What's more important, playing the game on Saturday or worrying about a game posted score, you know, a second after the game is over? Like, would you rather me worry about that or make sure you have somewhere to play and, you know, refs to be on the field? So.
And obviously you chose to play.
Yeah, like, you're paying to play. You're not paying me to post your score on Facebook. You know what I mean? Like, so you have to kind of categorize that a little bit more. But as far as the red zone goes and grid zone, I get screenshots probably every day, especially during the season. I don't pay much attention to that stuff. My first year, I used to get very, very offended. Like, I used to get very mad because of all the time and energy we put in that nobody saw. But now it's like just the bigger things in my life. It's not worth the time. Kind of like your question about the parking lot situation. Like, you know, that could have sent 2 lives in completely different directions. And, you know, not to say what could have or would have happened, but the outcomes could have been very different, you know, if one person would have just walked away, right? Like, I tell people all the time, like, I'm not a fighter because I don't think that solves anything personally. for both parties at least it doesn't. So.
Okay, yeah. So that's all the questions I got for you today. That's what I got. But I really appreciate you for coming on. I really thank you.
Yeah,
in your league, you're really doing great things. Like I see everything you guys do.
I do hope someday that there'll be some big announcements coming in February from me. I think hopefully someday there'll be one big league. I still don't know necessarily how it'll all come together. I've heard the players talk about a player-owned league. We already have player-owned leagues, right? Like I was a player, Nigel was a player. All the owners have been players at one point. It's already a player-owned league, right? Like, so when you throw that term around, the term is void. It's already there. So I think that's really what it comes down to is, just everybody being able to put some things aside. I try to do a win-win, right? Like, not necessarily mean I get everything I want, but both parties can walk away winning something, so. But, yeah, great job, man.
Well,
yeah.
Appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you.
Yeah. No worries, man. Like to be back hopefully in the season. I think Commission Picks might be coming back this next season. I got to talk to Nigel, and if it does, I think I'm going to try to throw both leagues in there and just have more of a neutral, maybe have him help me with the show. We've had talks about that in the past, about him and I doing the show together just to kind of talk about both teams or both leagues and how they match up, but we'll see if that comes to fruition or not. So
if it goes through, it's going to be like the greatest team.
Yeah.
It's going to be definitely going to be great.
So, cool. All right, man. Well, thank you.
I appreciate you.